The docking klaxon blared through Epsilon Haven's main corridor, and Quix felt his thermal vents flutter with anticipation. Another vessel. Another manifest to process. Another cycle in the endless rotation of traders, haulers, and vagabonds who passed through this remote trading station on the edge of the Terran buffer zone. Except this time, the manifest made his three hearts skip in sequence. Species, human. Origin, Earth. Quix's manipulator appendages trembled slightly as he pulled up the vessel's credentials on his datapad. The salvage ship Wandering Fortune had clearance, legitimate cargo documentation, and a crew roster of 4. 3 Liquefy salvagers and 1 human. The human was listed as general labor and cargo specialist. By the eternal furnace, Quix muttered, his translator converting his native Venlati into galactic standard. They actually hired one. His assistant, a young Threxy named Yenna, glanced up from her terminal with large, luminous eyes. Her feathered crest twitched with curiosity. Hired what, administrator? A human, Quix said, and watched with grim satisfaction as Yenna's crest flattened completely against her skull. Here? A human is coming here. Apparently so. Yenna's slender fingers flew across her console, pulling up the public databases on Earth and its inhabitants. What appeared on her screen made her outer eyelids close in what Quix recognized as involuntary fear response. Earth, Class 12, Death World. Gravity 0.98 standard. Atmospheric composition containing 21% oxygen. Surface temperature variations of over 80 degrees. Predator saturation level critical. Evolutionary pressure index off the acceptable scale. And the humans. Oh, the humans. Persistence predators. Endurance hunters. A species that evolved by literally running their prey into exhaustion and death across endless plains under a sun that bombarded them with radiation. Their bodies somehow converted into useful vitamins. They sweated acid to cool themselves. Their blood clotted automatically. They could function on minimal sleep for days. Their bodies produced their own chemical painkillers during trauma. Why would anyone hire one? Yenna whispered. Cheap labor, probably, Quix said, though he did not believe his own words. Nothing about humans was cheap. Their reputation alone carried weight that most species found uncomfortable. Process the docking sequence. Standard protocols. Yenna nodded, but her feathers remained flat. The Wandering Fortune docked smoothly in Bay 7. Quix watched the feed from his office as the airlock cycled and the crew disembarked. 3 Liquefy emerged first, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the bay lights, their 4 legs carrying them with the characteristic clicking gait of their species. They moved with the efficient boredom of experienced salvagers. Then she stepped through the airlock. Petra. Quix leaned forward, studying the human with undisguised fascination and carefully suppressed terror. She stood approximately 5 feet and 7 inches tall, shorter than he had expected, with dark hair pulled back into a simple tail. Her skin was pale, almost luminous under the harsh station lighting, and her face held that peculiar flatness that marked humans as descended from forward-facing predator lineage. Both eyes pointed the same direction. Binocular vision. Depth perception optimized for tracking prey. She wore simple work clothes, a gray jumpsuit that looked worn but clean, and heavy boots that struck the deck plating with solid thuds. What struck Quix most was her expression. She looked bored, slightly tired, completely relaxed. A human standing in a galactic trading station millions of light years from her Death World home looked bored. Yenna, pull up her individual manifest. The data appeared. Name, Petra. Age, 24 Terran years. Previous employment, asteroid mining, hull repair, salvage operations. No criminal record, no military service. Clearance level 3. Completely unremarkable, except for the species designation. Quix activated his communicator. Bay 7. This is Administrator Quix. Processing crew of Wandering Fortune for station access. The Liquefy captain responded immediately, his mandibles clicking in the background. Acknowledged, Administrator. We will be here for 6 cycles. Standard resupply and rest. Understood. Your human crew member will need to complete additional documentation. Nothing personal, simply required for her species classification. A pause. Then the captain's amused chittering. She expected as much. Sending her to your office now. 10 minutes later, Petra stood in Quix's office doorway. Up close, she was even more unnerving. Her eyes were blue, a color Quix associated with warning bioluminescence in toxic species. They tracked his movements with casual precision. Her hands hung loose at her sides, and Quix could not help but notice the thickness of her fingers, the blunt strength evident even in rest. You wanted to see me? Her voice was surprisingly pleasant, musical even. Yes, please sit. I am Administrator Quix. I oversee operations here on Epsilon Haven. Petra sat, and Quix tried not to notice how the chair, rated for species up to 300 pounds, seemed inadequate for her. Not because of size, but because of presence. I understand this is your first time on a non-human station? First time off Earth, actually, Petra said and smiled. Teeth. So many teeth. Flat ones for grinding plant matter, sharp ones for tearing flesh. Omnivore dentition, the worst kind. I see. Well, I need to inform you of certain protocols. Nothing discriminatory, but humans have certain reputations in galactic society. I know. Death World savages who should have killed themselves off before reaching space travel. Her tone was light, almost amused. Quix felt his vents flutter again. I would not phrase it quite so bluntly, but accurately. She leaned back, still smiling. Look, Administrator, I get it. My planet is scary. My species is scary. We are built for a world that actively tries to murder everything living on it, and we are very good at not dying. But I am just here to work, eat, sleep, and maybe see something that is not another rock floating in space. I am not going to hurt anyone. I believe you, Quix said, and surprised himself by meaning it. There was something disarmingly honest about her directness. However, I still need you to review station regulations regarding physical altercations, restricted areas, and emergency protocols. Sure thing. They spent the next 20 minutes reviewing documentation. Petra signed everything with a thumbprint, her dermal ridges leaving distinctive marks on the scanner. She asked intelligent questions about life support systems, gravity plating tolerances, and cargo handling procedures. Professional. Competent, normal. Quix began to relax. That was when the hull breach alarm screamed through the station. Bay 7, emergency decompression. Bay 7 experiencing rapid pressure loss. Quix lunged for his console, pulling up the camera feeds. Bay 7, the same bay where the Wandering Fortune was docked. A cargo loader had malfunctioned, its automated arm striking a support beam with enough force to crack the hull plating. Not enough to cause catastrophic failure, but enough to create a fissure. Atmosphere was venting into space through a gap roughly 6 inches wide. The Liquefy crew was scrambling toward the emergency bulkheads. Standard procedure. Seal the bay, contain the breach, deploy repair drones. Petra stood up calmly. Sit down, Quix shouted. Emergency protocols require all non-essential personnel to shelter in place during decompression events. Petra looked at him, and for the first time, Quicks saw something shift in those blue eyes. Not fear, not panic. Calculation. That breach is near the primary fuel coupling for their ship. If it widens before the drones arrive, the temperature differential will crack the coupling. That will cause a fuel leak into a low-pressure environment. The drones will arrive in 40 seconds. The coupling will fail in 30. And then she was moving. Quicks watched in horror as Petra sprinted from his office, down the corridor, and straight toward Bay 7. The emergency bulkheads were closing. She slid under one with seconds to spare, rolling to her feet on the other side. "She is in the bay!" Yenna shrieked from her station. "The human is in the breached bay." The pressure gauge read 0.4 atmospheres and dropping. Lethal for every species Quicks knew. The cold would be intense. The lack of oxygen would render most species unconscious in seconds. Petra crossed the bay floor in long strides. The camera feed showed frost forming on every surface. Her breath misted in great clouds. She reached the breach, a jagged tear in the hull plating where atmosphere shrieked outward into the void, and she examined it. Just stood there for 3 seconds, looking at the breach and the fuel coupling beside it, thinking. Then she grabbed a cargo netting strap, wrapped it around her left hand, and stepped into the breach itself. Quicks felt his third heart stop completely. Petra stood partially in vacuum. The camera showed her jumpsuit whipping in the escaping air, her hair streaming behind her. Her exposed skin began to redden immediately from burst capillaries. The moisture on her eyes should have frozen. She reached past the breach, grabbed the emergency seal panel, and wrenched it sideways. It should have required 2 crew members and a manual crank. She tore it open with her hands and slapped the emergency foam deployment button. Expanding foam erupted from the panel, filling the breach in seconds. The venting stopped. Pressure stabilized. Petra stepped back into the bay proper, shaking her head like she was clearing water from her ears. She looked up at the camera and shrugged. Fixed it. Then she walked back toward the bulkhead, which cycled open now that pressure had been restored. Quicks sat frozen in his chair. Yenna had gone completely rigid, her feathers standing at maximum extension. Petra returned to the office 3 minutes later. Her skin was blotchy red, already fading back to pale. Her eyes were bloodshot but clear. She sat down in the same chair. "Sorry about that. Where were we?" "You were exposed to vacuum," Quicks said, his voice barely functioning. "You were in hard vacuum for 17 seconds. 17, huh? Felt shorter." She rubbed her arms absently. "Stings a bit, but I have had worse." "Worse? Worse than vacuum exposure?" "Sure. Ever been stung by a Terran jellyfish? Now that hurts." She smiled again, apparently finding this amusing. "Can we finish the paperwork? I am getting hungry." Quicks completed the registration in silence. When Petra left, he immediately pulled up every file, every database entry, every rumor about humans he could access. One phrase kept appearing in the documentation, translated from a dozen languages. Death World occupants do not view danger the same way other species do. They view it as an inconvenience. Quicks began a new file on his personal drive. Title: Human Behavioral Documentation. Subject: Petra. He had a feeling this was going to be a very interesting assignment. 3 cycles passed, and Petra became a fixture in the cargo handling section of Epsilon Haven. Quicks watched her through security feeds with the dedication of a xenobiologist studying a new predator species. She lifted containers that required 4 Liquefy working together. She operated loading equipment with smooth efficiency. She ate prodigious amounts of food in the station cafeteria, which made the Threxy cooks nervous, but delighted when she complimented everything they prepared. Yenna, despite her initial terror, began spending time with Petra during break periods. Quicks monitored their conversations with fascination. Do humans really fight each other for entertainment? Yenna asked one afternoon, her crest half raised in curiosity. Oh yeah, all the time. Boxing, wrestling, martial arts. We have entire sports dedicated to hitting each other. Petra took a bite of something purple that smelled vaguely toxic. It is fun. Fun? You enjoy pain? Not the pain exactly, but the challenge. Testing yourself against someone else, seeing who is better. Petra shrugged. Plus, the adrenaline rush is amazing. Yenna's feathers flattened slightly. Your species produces combat stimulants naturally. Sure, adrenaline, endorphins, cortisol. Whole cocktail of chemicals that make us faster, stronger, less affected by injury. Evolution is neat like that. Terrifying. Evolution is terrifying like that. Petra laughed, and Yenna actually flinched at the sound before catching herself. But Quicks noticed something else. Other species on the station began gravitating toward Petra rather than avoiding her. The Gleethy salvagers spoke with her regularly. A family of Bravathi traders asked her to help move their merchandise, then invited her to share a meal. Even old Tanix, the grumpy Venlathi who ran the machine shop, was seen explaining welding techniques to her. She was integrating, becoming part of the station community. That was when the accident happened. Bay 4, mid-shift, cargo transfer in progress. A shipment of industrial supplies from a Bravathi merchant vessel. Standard materials except for one container. Calvix acid, used in advanced manufacturing processes. Incredibly valuable. Incredibly dangerous. The substance could dissolve through 6 inches of titanium plating in under 4 minutes. The container was reinforced, triple sealed, certified safe by 3 different regulatory bodies. It was also loaded wrong. Quicks saw it happen on the security feed. A loader drone miscalculated its approach angle, setting the container down with too much force on an uneven section of deck plating. The container tipped, struck another cargo unit, and the impact cracked the inner seal. Green vapor began hissing from the breach. The bay erupted in panic. Bravathi workers scattered, their breather masks useless against Calvix fumes. 2 Gleethy loaders abandoned their equipment and sprinted for the exits. The automated safety systems began their shutdown sequence, but the acid was already spreading, eating through the deck plating with audible sizzling. Petra was on the far side of the bay, organizing a shipment of hull repair materials. She looked up at the commotion, assessed the situation in roughly 2 seconds, and started walking toward the leaking container. Not running. Walking. Evacuation in progress, the automated system announced. All personnel clear Bay 4 immediately. Hazardous materials breach detected. Yenna appeared on the catwalk above the bay, having heard the alarm from her engineering station. Petra, get out. That is Calvix acid. Petra held up one hand in acknowledgement, but kept walking toward the container. The green vapor was thicker now, forming a cloud around the breach. The deck plating beneath showed dark scorch marks where droplets had fallen. She stopped 3 feet from the container and turned to face the observation window where Quicks stood frozen. Her voice came through the communication system, calm and clear. Everyone needs to leave this bay right now. Seal the doors behind you. That was her first warning. Quicks hit the evacuation alarm. All personnel, full evacuation of Bay 4. Emergency bulkheads closing in 30 seconds. Workers poured through the exits. Yenna remained on the catwalk, her eyes locked on Petra. "You too," Petra called up to her. "Go." "What are you doing?" "My job. Now move." Yenna fled. 20 seconds remained before the bulkhead sealed. Petra looked at the container again, studying the growing breach. Green vapor poured out faster now, the acid eating through its own containment with accelerating hunger. She grabbed the container. With her bare hands, Quicks watched from the safety of the observation deck as Petra's palms made contact with the corroding metal. Her skin began smoking immediately, thin wisps rising from her fingers. She adjusted her grip, finding the breach point, and pressed her hands directly against the crack. The acid touched her flesh, her jaw tightened. That was the only sign she gave. She held the breach closed, her hands literally melting against superheated corrosive liquid, while the emergency foam deployment system cycled through its activation sequence. 10 seconds. 15. 20. The foam finally erupted, encasing the entire container in quick hardening suppressant material. The breach was sealed. The leak stopped. Petra pulled her hands away from the container and looked at them with clinical detachment. The skin was red, blistered, peeling away in strips. Quicks could see exposed muscle tissue on 3 fingers. Any other species would be screaming, convulsing, dying from toxic shock. Petra walked to the emergency wash station, stuck her hands under the decontamination spray, and let the water run over the wounds for the prescribed 90 seconds. Then she walked to the exit, slapped the door release with her elbow, and stepped through. Quicks met her in the corridor, along with Yenna and half a dozen other station personnel. Everyone stared. "Medical bay is on level 3, Quicks said weakly. "I know where it is." Petra looked annoyed. "This is going to take forever to heal. I'm going to miss my meal break, aren't I?" She walked away, leaving a small trail of blood droplets on the deck plating. Yenna turned to Quicks, her crest completely inverted. "What is she?" "Human," Quicks whispered. "Just human." The medical report came back 6 hours later. 2nd and 3rd degree chemical burns across both palms and 8 fingers. Muscle damage, nerve exposure, recommended healing time for any species, 4 to 6 weeks with full regeneration. Therapy. Petra was released after 9 hours with bandaged hands and instructions to return for follow-up in 3 days. She returned to work the next cycle. Word spread fast. A human on Epsilon Haven who held acid with her bare hands. The story grew in the telling, as stories do, until Petra became something of a legend among the traders and crews passing through. Most found this reputation comforting. A death worlder protecting the station? Excellent. But one crew heard the stories and drew different conclusions. Drell was a Borathian, which meant he stood 7 feet tall and massed 400 pounds of muscle and bone beneath thick gray hide. He led a pirate crew that had terrorized the sector for 8 years. 12 species had tried to stop him. All had failed. He docked at Epsilon Haven during 3rd shift, claiming merchant credentials. His crew of 15 spread through the station quickly, efficiently, professionally. They had done this before. Quicks was in his office when the alarms started screaming. Not malfunction alarms, security breach alarms. The feed showed armed Borathians taking control of the main corridor. Hostages huddled against walls. Yenna was among them, her feathers pressed flat in terror. Drell's voice boomed through the station communication system. "Epsilon Haven is now under my control. You will transfer all station credits to my accounts. You will open your secure storage, and you will bring me the human." Quicks felt his vents seize. "Why do you want her?" "Because a human who can touch acid is worth a fortune to the right buyers. Science labs, military contractors, genetic research facilities. She is coming with me." "She will refuse." Drell's laughter was cruel. She will obey, or I start killing hostages, starting with the pretty bird creature. The feed showed Drell dragging Yenna forward by her arm. She whimpered, a sound that made Quix's hearts ache. Another feed activated. Bay 6, where Petra had been organizing a supply shipment. She stood perfectly still, arms crossed, watching a monitor that showed her the hostage situation. Her face held no expression at all. She tapped her communicator. "Where is he?" "Cargo Bay 2, Quix said. "Petra, do not do anything." She was already walking. Petra walked into Cargo Bay 2 through the main entrance. Not sneaking, not hurrying, just walking, her bandaged hands visible at her sides, her expression neutral. Drell stood in the center of the bay, surrounded by his crew. Yenna knelt beside him, his massive hand gripping her shoulder. Other hostages lined the walls, guarded by armed pirates. Drell smiled when he saw Petra. The Death World girl, smaller than I expected. Petra stopped 20 feet away. She looked at Drell, then at his crew, counting them with visible eye movements. 15 total. Various species, all armed with plasma weapons or shock batons. "You wanted me. Here I am. Let them go." "No. You are coming with us. You are worth more than this entire station." "I am not going anywhere with you." Drell's smile widened. "Then I start killing this bird creature first." He raised a plasma pistol to Yenna's head. Petra's expression did not change. Her voice dropped lower, quieter, and somehow that made it more terrifying. "Leave this station. Leave these people. You have 60 seconds. Drell laughed. His crew laughed. The sound echoed through the bay. 60 seconds? Or what? You touch me with your acid hands." He laughed harder. "I have conquered 12 species. I have killed warriors twice your size. You are one small human giving orders to Drell the Unbreakable." Petra began counting. 60, 59, 58. "Shoot her legs," Drell ordered. "We need her alive, not mobile." 2 pirates raised their weapons. 42. Drell lunged forward, reaching for Petra with his free hand while keeping the pistol trained on Yenna. That was his mistake. What happened next took 4.7 seconds. Quix watched the security feed 12 times afterward and still could not fully process the sequence. Petra moved. Not fast by Death World standards, she would explain later. Just fast enough. She sidestepped Drell's reach, grabbed his extended arm, and used his own momentum to flip him. All 7 feet and 400 pounds of Baratheon crashed into the deck plating hard enough to crack it. The plasma pistol skittered away. The 2 pirates with raised weapons fired. Petra was already moving, using Drell's falling body as cover. The shots hit him instead. He roared in pain. She closed the distance to the first pirate in 3 strides. 1 punch. He dropped. The second pirate swung a shock baton. Petra caught his wrist, twisted, and the snap of breaking bone echoed through the bay. He screamed. She took the baton and threw it like a javelin into a third pirate's chest. He went down convulsing. 11 pirates remained standing. Petra smiled. That smile was worse than any weapon. The pirates broke. Some ran for exits. Others dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. 3 tried to fight. It went poorly for them. 90 seconds after Drell reached for her, every pirate was either unconscious or begging for mercy. Drell himself had wedged himself into a cargo container and refused to come out, speaking in fragmented babbles about demons and death and those terrible blue eyes. Petra walked to Yenna and helped her stand. "You okay?" Yenna nodded mutely, her whole body trembling. "Good. I am starving. Want to grab food?" Station security arrived to find Petra sitting in the cafeteria, eating something orange while Yenna sat across from her in shocked silence. Quix entered, his vents fluttering uncontrollably. "The authorities are coming for the pirates. They want your statement." "Sure, after I eat." Petra took another bite. They interrupted lunch. That was rude. "You fought 15 armed pirates alone." 14, technically. One surrendered before I reached him. Smart guy. "How? Did you move that fast?" "I did not move fast. They moved slow." She shrugged. "Happens a lot, actually. Humans process combat situations differently. Adrenaline, time dilation effect, predator instinct. We are built for this." Quix sat down heavily. "Built for this." "Yeah. Earth is not just dangerous because of the environment. It is dangerous because everything on it is trying to eat everything else. Predators everywhere. We survived by becoming better predators, better hunters, better fighters." She smiled, gentler this time. "But we also survived by protecting our group, our tribe. You are my tribe now, station family. Nobody hurts my family." Yenna made a small chirping sound. "We are your family?" "Sure. You share food with me. You talk to me. That makes you family, and I protect family. Even though we are not human. Especially because you are not human. You need protecting more." Petra finished her meal and stood. "Now, where do these authorities want to meet?" The report took 3 hours. The authorities listened to testimony from 40 witnesses. They reviewed security footage. They interviewed every pirate who was conscious enough to speak. Drell never left his cargo container. He was eventually sedated and removed by medical personnel. His last coherent words were, "The smiling demon." The authorities cleared Petra of all wrongdoing, self-defense and defense of others. Textbook justified response. As they departed, their commander, a grizzled Venlathi veteran, stopped by Quix's office. "Administrator, a word of advice. Post warnings about your human. Clear, visible warnings." What should they say? That second warnings from humans are not guaranteed. That first warnings should be heeded absolutely. The commander's vents fluttered grimly. And that humans smile when they are most dangerous. Quix created the notice that evening. It appeared at every station entrance within hours, transmitted to every vessel's computer as they docked. "Warning. Human personnel aboard Epsilon Haven. Species, classification. Death World Apex Predator. Station security provided. Hostile action will be met with immediate response." Second warnings are a courtesy rarely given. Beneath it, added by Yenna without authorization, a single line. "Petra is nice. Do not make her not nice." Petra continued working cargo handling. She ate in the cafeteria. She laughed with Yenna. She helped Tanix repair a welding unit. She became part of the station rhythm. But every species who visited Epsilon Haven afterward gave her respectful space. They nodded politely. They never raised their voices. They never caused trouble. Because they had heard the stories. They had seen the footage. They understood the fundamental truth about humans that most species learned too late. Deathworlders do not just survive. They protect. And protection from a human is the most terrifying blessing the galaxy can offer. Quix watched Petra teaching Yenna some Terran card game in the rec area, both of them laughing at something, and updated his documentation file. Final note. Humans are dangerous, yes. But they are also loyal, protective, and surprisingly kind. The galaxy fears them. Perhaps the galaxy should instead hope to befriend them. He saved the file and felt his vents settle into calm rhythm. Epsilon Haven had never been safer.